I'm Detective James, and this is the cases the news forgot.
The first thing you need to understand is this. I didn't believe the lake story when I heard it. I've been a detective for over 3 decades, 56 years old. I've stood over crime scenes that smelled like copper and rain. I've listened to confessions that came out in whispers and screams. When people talk about cursed places, most of the time they're trying to hide something human. But this call didn't sound like fear. It sounded like guilt. The man on the phone never gave his name. His voice was low, controlled, like he'd practiced this conversation 100 times and still hated every word. He asked me if I was still consulting on cold cases. I said yes. He paused, then said, "Good. Then you're old enough to remember when we stopped talking about Hollowmere Lake." I told him I'd never heard of it. Another pause, longer this time. Then he said something that made me sit up straight in my chair. "Things don't disappear there," he said. "They wait." I almost hung up, but then he added, "My brother threw something into that lake in 1994. Last night it showed up on my kitchen table, and I don't live anywhere near the lake anymore." I asked what it was. He whispered, "My brother's wedding ring. He died 6 years ago." That's when I took the case. Hollowmere Lake doesn't show up on most maps anymore. You have to know which county road to turn off, which stretch of forest suddenly gets too quiet. The kind of quiet where even your own footsteps sound wrong. I drove there just before dusk, because places like this always tell the truth when the light is leaving. No warning signs, no fences, just trees leaning inward, like they were trying to listen. The lake itself was calm, too calm. No ripples, no insects skimming the surface. It looked less like water and more like glass poured into the ground and forgotten. I stood there for a long time before I realized I was holding my breath. A local man was watching me from a distance. Mid-60s, weathered face, didn't come closer, didn't leave either. When I finally walked toward him, he shook his head slowly and said, "You shouldn't stand there too long. It starts noticing." I asked him what he meant. He looked past me, toward the water, and said, "People think the lake takes things. That's not true. It gives them back. Just not the way you remember." The first confirmed incident happened in 1971. A teenage girl threw her class ring into Hollowmere Lake after a breakup. Witnesses said she laughed when she did it, called it dramatic. She moved away that same year. 9 years later, the ring was found inside her childhood bedroom dresser, sitting neatly on top of folded clothes. Same scratches, same engraving, except the metal was darker, warped, and warm to the touch, according to the police report. No signs of forced entry. No explanation. That should have been enough to scare people. It wasn't. Over the years, other things were thrown in, always during moments of anger, grief, or desperation. A pocket knife after a fight, a photograph after a funeral, a set of car keys during a screaming match by the water. The lake accepted them all without a sound, and then, slowly, patiently, it started returning them. Sometimes weeks later, sometimes decades, always altered. A watch that still ticked, but only at night. A wallet that came back heavier than before. A child's shoe that no longer fit any known size. And then there were the ones that came back wet. Not lake wet, fresh wet. The man who called me met me at a diner 30 miles away. He refused to go closer. His hands shook when he slid the ring across the table. I recognized it immediately from the report. Gold band, simple engraving, but the inside was scratched now, deep enough to catch a fingernail. I asked him what the scratches said. He swallowed. "They're dates," he said. "Dates after my brother died." That night, I stayed alone near the lake. I didn't go to the shore. I didn't throw anything in. I just listened. Wind through the trees, distant water movement, and something else. A sound like something being dragged slowly across a surface that shouldn't have been solid. At 2:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. No signal out there, no bars, no service. Yet I had a notification, one missed call, from my own number, and when I checked my bag, something was missing. Something I was absolutely sure I hadn't thrown into the lake. I didn't sleep after that call. Not really. I lay on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the vibration of my phone over and over in my head. I checked my call log again. Still nothing. No record of the missed call. No outgoing call either. Just silence, like it had never happened, except something had changed. My notebook was gone. Not missing in the way things sometimes are when you misplace them. Gone in the way that makes your stomach drop. I searched my bag twice. Then a third time. Slower. The notebook held every case note I'd written since retiring from active duty. 36 years of work. I never let it out of my sight. I hadn't thrown it into the lake. I was certain of that. At sunrise, I drove back toward Hollowmere. The road felt longer than it had the night before, like the forest had quietly rearranged itself while I wasn't looking. When I reached the clearing, something was wrong. There were footprints along the shoreline. Not fresh. Pressed deep like whoever made them had stood there a long time, facing the water, waiting. I followed the prints until they stopped inches from the edge. No return tracks. Whoever it was hadn't walked away. The local sheriff found me there. He didn't ask what I was doing. He just said, "You heard it last night, didn't you?" I didn't answer. He nodded like that was enough. He told me the lake had rules, not written ones, patterns. It didn't respond to curiosity. It responded to loss. He took me to a locked storage room beneath the station. Shelves lined with evidence bags, each one holding an item returned by the lake. Some were decades old, some recent. Every single one had been altered. A camera that only showed one photograph, no matter how many times you clicked it. A tape recorder that played a voice asking questions no one remembered recording. A pair of glasses that reflected water even in dry rooms. My notebook sat on the center table. Dry, clean, open. I didn't touch it. I already knew better. The sheriff said the lake never returned something unless it wanted something back. Balance, exchange. He said people who tried to keep returned items usually didn't keep them long. Accidents, disappearances, sudden decisions to go back to the water. I flipped through the notebook carefully. Most of it was unchanged until I reached the final pages. There were new entries, my handwriting, same pressure, same slant, but I hadn't written them. Dates listed weeks into the future. Notes describing things I hadn't seen yet. Conversations I hadn't had. One page simply read, "You will think you can leave." That's when I realized the lake wasn't reacting anymore. It was predicting. Over the next 2 days, more objects returned, faster now. A woman found her missing son's jacket hanging on the back of her chair. A man discovered his father's fishing knife in the glove box of a car he'd just bought. Every return brought something extra. A smell, a sound, a mark that hadn't been there before. People started arguing about whether the lake was giving closure or reopening wounds. Then the arguments stopped. People became quiet, compliant, like they didn't want to risk upsetting something that was clearly listening. On the third night, the lake gave something back to the town itself. The old welcome sign appeared at the edge of the water, the one removed 20 years earlier when Hollowmere was wiped from public records. The paint was fresh, the wood wasn't warped, and underneath the town's name, someone had added new words carved deep into the plank. "We remember what you left." That night, my phone rang again. Same number. This time I answered. There was no voice, just the sound of water moving. Slow, intentional, and beneath it, faint but unmistakable, the sound of pages turning, my notebook. And then the call ended. I packed my things. I told the sheriff I was leaving in the morning. He didn't argue. He just asked me one question. He asked if I'd checked my pockets recently. I hadn't. When I did, my fingers brushed against cold metal. My old service badge, the one I lost years ago. The lake hadn't taken it. It had been waiting to return it. And now, it had. By the fourth day, nobody in Hollowmere was pretending anymore. Returned objects were no longer quiet discoveries. They were interruptions. A woman screamed in the middle of the grocery store when her dead husband's voice came out of the store's old intercom system, calling her nickname the way only he ever had. A school teacher found a stack of essays on her desk, written in handwriting that matched her missing students, dated years after he vanished. A man woke up to the sound of dripping water in his bedroom and found his drowned brother's jacket hanging in the closet, slowly soaking into the carpet. Every object came back with a reminder. Every reminder came with a demand. I tried to leave that morning. I packed my bag, checked out of the motel, and drove toward the county road. About a mile out, the engine stalled. No warning lights, no smoke, just silence. When I stepped out, the air felt heavier, like the pressure before a storm. I checked the hood. Everything looked fine. That's when I noticed the ground beneath my feet. Wet, not from rain, from footprints, leading away from my car, leading back toward the lake. I turned around slowly. The road behind me looked different, narrower, trees closer together. The forest was doing that thing again, the rearranging. I got back in the car and turned the key. Nothing. My phone had no signal, no missed calls this time. Just a single notification, a reminder, calendar entry. Return what you borrowed. I went back to town on foot. No one tried to stop me. No one tried to help me either. People avoided eye contact now. Doors closed when I passed, like they didn't want the lake to notice them noticing me. The sheriff met me outside the station. He didn't look surprised. He told me someone had tried to destroy a returned object the night before. They threw the watch back into the lake. It came back before it hit the waters. The man who threw it said it felt like hitting a wall. The watch dropped at his feet, still ticking, and the water stayed perfectly still. 10 minutes later, the man collapsed. No visible injuries, no signs of trauma, just water in his lungs. The coroner called it impossible. That's when the sheriff admitted the truth. The lake wasn't just returning objects anymore. It was enforcing rules. I went back to the shore one last time, Against every instinct I had, the fog was thick, crawling across the surface like something alive. I held my old badge in my hand. It felt heavier than it should have. When I looked closely, I saw new scratches forming along the edge. Letters carving themselves in slow, deliberate strokes. Names, some I recognized, some I didn't. Some hadn't happened yet. The water moved then, not waves, ripples spreading outward from a single point near the center. Something surfaced briefly, not fully, just enough to break the reflection. Pale, featureless, watching. I didn't hear a voice, but I understood the message anyway. The lake didn't want the objects. It wanted acknowledgement. It wanted people to remember what they tried to forget, to accept the weight of what they threw away. The lake wasn't punishing anyone. It was correcting them. I checked my notebook again. More pages had filled in, describing things happening as I read them, describing me standing there, describing my hesitation, describing the exact moment I would decide whether to leave or stay. The final line wasn't written yet. I backed away from the water slowly. The ripples stopped. The lake was calm again, patient, certain. I realized then that the worst part wasn't that the lake remembered everything. It was that it was willing to wait, and it knew I was running out of time. I didn't go back to the lake that night, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I finally understood something the others hadn't. The lake didn't rush. It never chased. It let people come to it when they were ready, or when they had nowhere else to go. Fear brought you closer. Resistance bought you time. Acceptance decided what you gave up. I stayed in my room and read the notebook until dawn. Every page filled itself as I turned it. Not predictions anymore. Memories. Things I had buried so deep I convinced myself they belonged to someone else. Cases I closed too quickly. Names I stopped following up on. One girl in particular. A disappearance I labeled accidental because it was easier than admitting I'd missed something obvious. Her name was written again and again in the margins, darker each time. At sunrise, the sheriff knocked on my door. He didn't ask if I was ready. He said, "It's waiting." The town gathered at the shore in silence. No one cried, no one spoke. They stood far back, like witnesses at an execution they'd all agreed not to look directly at. The water was calm, almost inviting. The fog thinned just enough to reveal the center of the lake, darker than the rest, like an eye that had finally opened. The sheriff told me no one had ever seen the lake finish returning something. People usually broke before that point. They ran. They drowned. They left town and never spoke about it again. He said if the lake finished with me, it might stop for a while. I asked him what happened if it didn't. He didn't answer. I stepped forward, alone. The badge in my pocket burned against my leg. The notebook felt heavier with every step. I realized then that the lake wasn't asking for an object. It was asking for a moment, a truth, something unresolved enough to anchor itself to the water forever. I spoke out loud, not to the people, to the lake. I admitted the case I abandoned, the girl I stopped looking for. I admitted I chose comfort over certainty. I admitted I threw away responsibility because it was easier than living with doubt. As I spoke, the water rippled. Not violently, though almost gently, like it was listening. I placed the notebook at the edge. The lake didn't take it right away. Instead, something surfaced. A shape rose just beneath the water, distorting the reflection of the sky. Then another, and another. Objects returning all at once, not thrown onto the shore. Placed carefully. The watch, the ring, the jacket, the backpack, even things I hadn't seen yet. A key I didn't recognize. A photograph of a room I'd never been in. And then the final return. A body. Not whole, not fresh, but recognizable. The missing girl. Her remains surfaced just enough for the truth to break through denial. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The sheriff dropped to his knees. The lake stilled. It had finished correcting one lie. I stepped back, shaking. The notebook slid into the water on its own. No splash, no resistance, just gone. The badge in my pocket grew cold. When I pulled it out, the names scratched into the metal were gone. All of them. The lake didn't need anything else from me. I left Hollowmere that afternoon. The road didn't resist this time. The forest opened like nothing had ever been wrong. On the highway, my phone buzzed one last time. No missed call, no reminder, just a photograph saved to my gallery. The lake, empty, perfectly still. I don't know if Hollowmere is finished. I don't know if the lake will ever return something again. But I know this. Some places don't exist to punish. They exist to remember what we refuse to carry. If you're listening to this and thinking about something you once threw away, an object, a promise, a truth, ask yourself why it felt necessary to let it sink. Because not everything stays lost, and not everything comes back unchanged.